You like when you're
I know,
right.
but it's so
Right.
much fun when everyone's a little bit down on something and then it
Yeah, I
has
got
this
this one
comeback.
way
Like, I
wrong.
love this.
Yeah.
I love this. And I think but there's another reason I love the mall renaissance specifically. And I think it because it pokes at some really important questions about what retail is going to look like 5, 10 years from now.
Mm.
Because I think one of my favorite things is when you talk to mall owners who are responsible for a lot of the malls in our indexes, they made really smart decisions like 10 years ago. This wasn't something that they decided to do yesterday and then just rode, tailwinds to success. This is decision making, then the pandemic hits, and then now they're like reaping the rewards. And I think a lot of it is, interestingly enough, to the conversation we were just having, the different value relationship between convenience and discovery. So what are
Hmm.
people really looking for? The different value relationship between looking at sales per channel and sales more holistically. So I think one of the big questions that we're going to face as a retail segment overall is which brands really embrace the fact that I don't care where you buy a product, I care that you buy a product versus, and that's, by the way, things like how do I incentivize staff that work in store? How do I incentivize teams that run my online channels? Like, am I measuring them because we hit overall sales? Like, do I care if imagine, I know we decide to open up a fashion brand and we open up a store and it sells zero product in the store, but we're crushing all our goals and that store is seeing a lot of people walk through its doors. Do we value the store enough to recognize that it contributes to the fact that we're doing our job? Like all these questions are so significant. And I think we see so much of it within the mall environment where there is this willingness to move away from like the classic channels that brought you success. There is this willingness to say, I don't need to have the same over reliance on the things that were so part of what people expected of the mall. I can challenge some of these perceptions from a tendency perspective and really drive success. And the consumer is looking for something that is, again, we talk this a lot of like whether experiential or experience, whatever terminology you want to use, but they're looking for a reason to go out and something more complete when they are willing to leave their house and go to your location. And I think the malls really leaned into that effectively, especially top tier players, and it drove a tremendous amount of success. So a huge element of here that I think we saw also in this year.
It's fascinating, especially when you think about and look to the success of brands like Abercrombie and other mall brands that are really filling the space that's missing, like you said, Ethan, the missing middle. It has skewed to luxury or to a Shein or a Walmart where you're spending like these mall brands are really having to think hard about where they're investing and even like number of locations and things like that to make them more desirable, like you're talking about with the mall owners' decisions.
Yeah, I also think we
Several years ago.
sometimes forget. Yeah, it's a great point. I also think one of the things we forget is the Abercrombie example is amazing. It's like Abercrombie, for all the challenges it faces, they have done something that such a minuscule percentage of companies ever achieve, which is become a name brand, right?
Mhm.
Everyone knows them. And I think you get multiple swings at the plate. You get cracks to kind of save yourself when you have achieved that status that others don't. And so for every kind of, RIP Bed Bath and Beyond that like doesn't make it through the conversion like process, like there are others who the fact that they establish that level of awareness, they get to reinvent themselves a couple of times in the kind of pursuit of that second wave or second life.
Yeah, and fashion is so cyclical by nature too
Hmm.
that it gives you that opportunity in that category particularly. The other thing I'd point out here too, Ethan, is like the mall operators have done a great job, you know, re-optimizing their portfolio, so to speak, of who they want in their malls and in which malls too, which is a big driver of this, right?
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I also think there's just that, you know, again, like I feel like I have to shout them out every time, but like you think about like all the DNBs that are coming in,
Hmm.
that are entering the space, that long tail of retailers who want to be in these top tier locations, the shift in focus, it just gives you more optionality of what you fill your kind of mall with, and that
Hmm.
creates something better for everybody. I think the amazing thing about the mall success is that it's a waterfall effect. It's the fact that this approach means not just that one mall does better. I actually think it means that the wider mall space succeeds more as a result, just because of the kind of by necessity, it's pushing some other retailers to find new locations and new spaces in other places than they would have looked in the past.